Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
Okay, Friday night, we're recording. It's Gridiron Grinder time. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. Just a couple dudes hanging out, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. Tonight is episode 53, and so we're going to start off with Name That Stadium like we always do. Then we're going to talk about the news from around the league. After that, we're going to spend some time predicting 2021 AFC team MVPs. And lastly, we'll close it off with our question of the week. So, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
It's going good, man. Busy week. I was feeling a little tired earlier, but I'm starting to get a second wind. You know, gridiron grinder, man, get you fired up.
Fuck yeah.
I like that. That's we're not even a minute in, and we're getting f bombs. I'm definitely digging it. All right, so let's do some name that stadium. For anybody who's watching, this is the part of the show where you can see James. He's traveling around the country. Every week, he's got a different stadium in his background. If you think you know where he's at, put your answer in our comment section. First person to get it right will get a special shout out next week's show. And so, James, why don't you tell us where you were at last week, man?
Last week I was in good old Detroit. You know, you got to give the Lions love every once in a while, as pathetic as they are.
Yeah, and so was there any news or anything that prompted it, or you just felt like hooking him up?
I just felt like hooking them up. You got the love for the team. You got to give them some props. And last week was the week.
You know, I remember talking about it actually, and I'm a little bummed out none of our buddies hit us up for that. But you know, we'll worry about that later. You know, they must not be paying that close attention. But it's all good, man. It's all good. And so yeah, we'll see next week. We'll find out where you're at tonight. So okay, moving it over to the recap of this past week. And so James, I am slacking in a major way this week when it comes to the news in the NFL. And I know that, you know, Richard Sherman got in some trouble. Um, you know, I did hear Taylor Moton signed a contract, you know, before the franchise tag, before that deadline. That was nice. But the big thing I heard about that's just blowing my mind, and I'm sure it is everybody else's, was the news about Tom Brady with the frickin' torn MCL, man.
Yeah,
Like,
no
can you
shit.
believe that shit?
No, I I'm at a complete loss for words on that. Like, how do you play on a torn MCL and have the season he did last year? I mean, imagine if he was 100% healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like he's just, you know, I mean, people are talking about it, and I think we talked about it before. Maybe alien, maybe cyborg. I don't know. Something's going on there.
Yeah, definitely something's going on there.
All right, so oh, you know, and I am just kind of skimming it right now. I did see Ted Ginn announced his retirement, 14 seasons in the NFL. You know, honestly, man, that guy hung in there a heck of a long time. You know, when he came out, it looked like he was going to be a special teams only kind of a guy, and he did develop a little bit as a receiver, a little bit of like a gadget guy, a little bit of a receiver, a little bit of special teams guy. But you know, the one thing that I heard even just this past year or two was that despite being long in the tooth, that guy maintained his speed, man. And that's one of the reasons he was able to hang around as long as he did. And that's pretty impressive. You know, typically a lot of guys as they get older, they fade like that. And they got to get a little bit smarter, maybe run different routes or take some different tactics. But hey, that's good, man. He's hanging them up, but 14 years, phew, that's a nice run for him.
Yeah, I think kind of with him, the opt out last year and then trying to come back might have hurt him a little bit, and that might be why he just kind of is like, I'm just gonna hang it up.
He finally faded. I got you.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me, what are you seeing this week, news wise?
Uh, well, the Saints. I'm gonna butcher the name. David Onyemata
Yes.
was suspended six games for PEDs, I think. Yeah,
Oh,
PEDs.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
So I mean that's a big blow to the Saints. I mean, he's started what 30 games the last 2 years and 16 sacks and 170 tackles.
Yeah, and I would say like if it was last year, it would hurt them, but they had some great depth at the position. But I know they lost Hendrickson in free agency, and so yeah. And now if they lose him for 6 games or whatever it is, yeah, that changes things on that defensive line quite a bit.
Yeah. And I mean, some stuff like the Sherman stuff, it kind of blows me away. Like if you actually read or listen to like the 911 call, it's like you read the transcript from it, and like it's completely fucked up. But the 911 operator, I mean, that was like some straight up bullshit.
Okay, tell me about it. I didn't
Like
hear that much about it.
so, like I'm trying to remember exactly what they said. Like so like, his wife was calling and asking for somebody, and he's like he says, "Oh, I'm handling it, blah blah blah." Oh, he's there's a difference between threatening violence and actually being physical, and like very condescending, and like at one point somebody else in the house got on the phone, and because the wife was like obviously having issues, not having issues, that's not the right way to say it, but like and somebody else got on the phone, and the operator's like, well, I only need to talk to one person.
Oh, yeah, and I got to imagine that's not a fun job, but you should hopefully have some training to know how to. And I don't know, maybe there's some training that says that you need to just funnel it that way. I don't. I mean, I guess
Oh
I
no,
really don't know, but that's.
let me look, let me find some of the quotes. It's just it's bad.
Okay. All right.
So
So what? Or you found? Okay, you get there. I was gonna get to something
so
else while you were looking, but yeah, go ahead.
okay, the wife had said, like, I need officers to my house now. My husband is drunk and belligerent. I, what's the address? Is there a weapon? No, there's no gun or whatever. Or and then the dispatcher yells at her, "Listen to me,"
Huh.
and then you need to stop interrupting me so I can get the information I need. Stop telling me you need police dispatch to your house. Um, it doesn't have a.
Okay. Yeah, and he's still sitting out there as a free agent, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. It's kind of like a fucked up situation, and like I think it kind of might have hurt him a little bit for.
Yeah, finding a squad now. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Huh.
trying to think. Like there was like a specific quote, like something that the operator said that was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Oh man, crazy times we're living in. Crazy freaking times.
Um, but there was, I mean, it was just bad all around. Like the operator, both sides, obviously, but
Okay. So yeah, while you're looking, really the only other thing that stuck out for me with the news was talking about, the teams having the different COVID vaccination levels, and like something like 13 teams were above, whatever the higher percent threshold was, and then I saw something like 2 or 3 teams are below 50%, like they were way low. And I've not been following it all that closely, but I know that that changes, the basically the different safety protocols for those teams. And um, it's tough, man. It's tough. Some people don't want to trust the science. Some people, yeah, I mean, hey, everybody's got their own reasons for it, and it just sucks that this thing just won't go away, man.
Yeah, it does, and like it's it's kind of messed up because like these players are complaining to, well, if you're not vaccinated, you have all these other increased things like you can't leave the hotel and stuff like that, and these players are bitching because, oh, it's a double standard or whatever, but you have a choice. Like my thought on it is, if you have a choice and you choose not to be vaccinated, it's really not on us to fucking protect you at this point.
Yeah, yeah. But you got to be careful because you don't want them spreading it to other people.
Yeah, because
So,
technically the vaccine doesn't prevent you from getting it; it just prevents you from getting having serious complications with it.
yeah, and I mean, that's something that we struggle with as a family is that, you can still be a carrier even though you might not, you might be asymptomatic or you might be fine, but you could still be a carrier and give it to somebody that doesn't have the vaccine, whether they're not eligible for it or they just chose not to get it, and then they could be at serious risk. And so it's a complicated thing, man. Complicated.
Yeah, everyone has their choice, but you know, don't complain if you make the choice because you have different restrictions on you. Is my
Yeah,
whole.
I got you. All right, so what else are you seeing news-wise? Or you want to move on?
I think that was about it. Like I'm glancing to see if there's something else I missed.
Okay. Well, let's skip it. If it was big, we would have covered it. So getting to the meat and potatoes of the show tonight, we are predicting 2021 AFC team MVPs. And so this is one of these things where, a lot of times quarterbacks get all the attention. And so people kind of gravitate towards them being the MVP of a team. And, it can be difficult because stats are very different from position to position. And then really stats only tell so much of the story. So it's like defensive linemen. Sometimes they might have a ton of pressures and be a factor and just not get the sacks. And so you kind of have to watch the games and be following it close enough to know, oh, hey, this guy's really dominant. He just didn't get some of the numbers. And then, trying to compare them, you're never really going to get an apples to apples when you're comparing a quarterback to a linebacker or whatever the case may be. And so each team, you know, different things to look at, different scenarios. I'll tell you that for my list, I did try to go with non quarterback MVPs, unless it was just like blatantly obvious there was nobody else in the discussion. And sometimes you can't avoid that. But I do like giving some other people some love because I think there's a lot of unsung heroes out there. And so, you know, I'm just kind of throwing out my little disclaimer. For my list, I did everything alphabetically. So I started with the Baltimore Ravens and went down from there. Does that work for you, or did you do it by division, or?
That works for me. I can pivot to
Okay.
alphabetically.
All right, let's do alphabetically. So starting with the Baltimore Ravens, I'll go first. I'll tell you who I liked here, and then you can give me your feedback and who you liked and all that kind of fun stuff. So for this one, there's a lot of talent on the Ravens. We know that. They're stacked every year. And I think that you could make the argument for a handful of people. A lot of people, the quarterback thing, they're going to gravitate to Lamar Jackson. I get that. Um, I looked at two other guys that stuck out for me. The first one was tight end Mark Andrews, and the second one was defensive tackle Brandon Williams. And I think you can make a good case for either of those guys. For Brandon Williams, we saw when he missed some time, that defense really struggled against the run. And for a defense that is normally very disciplined and just like rock solid, it seemed like they had some exposure without him in the lineup. And then for Mark Andrews, I look at Lamar Jackson and he's had just not a great run of luck throwing to like Hollywood Brown and some of these other guys. It seems like he needs like a big physically imposing tight end like Mark Andrews to really succeed as a passer. And I think Mark Andrews would succeed on any team with any quarterback. I think he's that good. And so, when I looked at the two, the guy I gave the edge to was Mark Andrews because so much of the team relies on Lamar Jackson. I looked at it as basically, handcuff them together. I think that that's a big part of his success. And so that was my pick for the Ravens. What did you think, man?
So I really tried to pick somebody besides Lamar Jackson. I really tried to, because it's so obvious. Lamar Jackson. He was unanimous MVP 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But if you do a dive into this team and how they play, when Jackson has an off game, the team generally loses.
Good point. Good point.
And when he's on, not always, they're more competitive, but the more Lamar Jackson is on his game, the better the team seems to do. So that's why I couldn't go anywhere but Lamar Jackson. Plus, I mean, you have Bozeman moving to center, and they signed Zeitler, so he's going to have better blocking, which might give him the chance to be able to throw the ball downfield more, which might take Andrews out of the equation a little bit this year.
Yeah, and they did bring in Sammy Watkins, and so they're
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to change some things, and they drafted what's his name, a wide receiver early, and so yeah, was it Bateman,
Yeah,
Rashad
Bateman.
Bateman? Yeah, and
Rashad
so
Bateman.
they, yeah, so I mean they're giving him all the weapons that he needs, and they're setting him up for success, and yeah, and hey, that's fine. I actually, for our next team, the Buffalo Bills, that's the direction I went, is with Josh Allen. And, I just looked at the jump that he made last year being so unbelievable. And I do think that an honorable mention has to go to Stefon Diggs for being a part of that equation. But we know that that team basically lives and dies with Josh Allen. I mean, that's one of the reasons why like this is just fantasy football stuff. But one of the reasons why none of those running backs are worth touching, because Josh Allen does everything. He passes, he runs. It's all about him. And kind of like what you're saying with Lamar, if he doesn't light it up, that team's not going to win that game. And so that was one where I had to just kind of default to the quarterback. But we all have our different reasons for it. So what did you think with Buffalo?
So I went the other direction on this one too. I went with Stefon Diggs, and the reason I went with Stefon Diggs was because if you look at the growth that Josh Allen had from 2019 to 2020, the reason for that growth seems to be Stefon Diggs. You give him another year, he's just going to light it up even more and open up the field for Allen to run the ball like he likes to, or open it up for other receivers to give Allen the stats you're talking about. And so I saw them like it's comparable value to the team. I just thought that Stefon Diggs was the catalyst that made that offense really, really click last year.
Well, and I do remember you talking earlier in the year or last year during the season about how, um, in 2019, the Buffalo receivers had a ton of drops. And
Hmm.
so, that was like part of the ding on Josh Allen was, well, hey, his receivers keep dropping the ball. It's not all on him. And then, them bringing in Diggs, just grabbing everything thrown his way. I think that helped kind of create some synergy that went towards Allen's sort of leap in progression, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, nice. So, hey, I mean, we kind of had the same philosophy, just on different teams there. Okay, so next team up, we got the Cincinnati Bengals. Tell me who you liked there.
This one I had to go with Burrow. You
Yeah.
just have to. Like you look at how he was progressing last year. He was on pace to be the rookie of the year last year. And he he's just I looked at Mixon because that running game means a lot there. I just as Burrow goes, this team goes.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what they do. If they don't have Burrow and they're healthy, this team will go nowhere. And so it falls on Burrow to be the MVP of the team.
Yeah, I agree with you for Cincinnati for sure because he had amazing composure as a rookie. It's rare the composure that we saw out of that guy. And aside from him and a couple pieces here and there, that team was just an absolute train wreck and still kind of is.
Hmm.
And I did give Joe Mixon a look, and I ended up pulling back on it because he's just missed so much time. He's got those or the migraines or whatever it is that were bugging him, and it just it's like, man, if you want to be the MVP, you got to be on the field. And we're kind of predicting, hey, can he be on the field this year? Sure, he can. But I think this year it's going to be all about Burrow. Um, and then honestly, the guy that I wanted to give an honorable mention to in Cincinnati was Tyler Boyd. Yeah, well, not was, but is Tyler Boyd. He's a guy that just always seems to be lost in the shuffle. A few years ago, it was because AJ Green's the guy. And then last year, it's because, oh, well, they got T. Higgins, and like a highly drafted wide receiver. And now this year, it's Jamar Chase. But the reality is, Tyler Boyd has been steadily producing at wide receiver for this team for a number of years now. And maybe he's not MVP worthy, but he's definitely a key contributor. So I wanted to give him a little bit of an honorable mention.
Hmm.
Okay, burning right through. Let's go to the Cleveland Browns. Who do you like there?
I struggled with this one. I, s- I really struggled with this one. I had three players.
Okay.
Yeah, that I looked at. Looked at Baker Mayfield, I looked at Nick Chubb, and I looked at Miles Garrett.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all for different reasons. Chubb. So I look first. You look at Baker, and you got to remember this team still has OBJ, and since they still have OBJ, that passing game is not the same with OBJ because to keep him happy, Baker
Yeah.
tries to force the ball into him. So then that led me to Chubb, which as you may remember from last year, when the running game got going, that's when the passing game opened up. And I mean that happens everywhere, but like Chubb's a workhorse back and he can put up the yards. But I ultimately settled on Miles Garrett.
Okay.
And the reason for it was if you look at the team, he's a team without Miles Garrett, like was 2019 when he was suspended for those games. Last year, I mean, he had the COVID issue for a couple games. I think it was two games he missed. And you look at how the team performed there, and the team did not perform the same without Garrett as it did with Garrett, and that's why I ultimately went with Garrett.
Nice. And yeah, we're aligned on that. I went with Miles Garrett as well. When I looked at the team, I really wanted to go with Nick Chubb, and I'll give him an honorable mention because I think he is a rare workhorse back in the NFL. I think the problem for going with him in this conversation is that they do give a significant amount of touches to Kareem Hunt also, who has been pretty damn effective in that offense. And so, even though I like Chubb and I think he would flourish on any team, I think that takes away from his case a little bit with the Cleveland Browns as being the MVP at least. And then, Miles Garrett, he's just such a rare talent. It's hard to find guys like that. And every year he's in that defensive player of the year conversation. And, he's in the conversation of will he be the guy to break the sack record? And it's just like, you know, he's at a different level. And so I agree. I think he's the guy for the MVP nod for the Cleveland Browns. All right, this one gets a little bit interesting. Denver Broncos, man. Who do you like here?
Let's go with Drew Lock. No, fuck that.
Oh, shit.
I
Psych.
so with Denver, the the obvious choice that people are going to say, oh well, it's got to be Von Miller.
Yeah.
That's what people are always going to say. It's got to be Von Miller. But when you actually sit down and look at the team last year without Miller, that defense was
Pretty
not
respectable.
not quite as good as they are with Miller, obviously, but
Yeah.
they still the team was still solid defensively last year. And I think that the reason for that is Bradley Chubb.
Okay.
And I think the leader on the defense is slowly moving over to Bradley Chubb there. And it's so that's why I'm going to go with Bradley Chubb as the MVP of the team, especially since you can't there's nobody on that offense that you can pick.
No, no, I mean, I suppose some people might throw a dart at like Melvin Gordon, but, we've seen all that he is at this point, and
Mm-hmm.
they drafted a running back fairly high just to kind of show that, there you got to hedge your bet with him because he's not going to be, I don't know, I mean, his yards per carry and everything, he's good if you give him the volume, but he's not great. And so, yeah, I wouldn't put him in the team MVP conversation. Um, well, I like that you went with Chubb. So the guy I went with was safety Justin Simmons, and I was looking at it from a similar light, which is that I really thought this guy stepped up to be the vocal leader of that defense last year. And then when I look at what's going on this year and the moves they made at cornerback, I feel like he's going to be the leader of arguably the best secondary in the league in 2021. And so, like you're saying, I know everybody's going to gravitate towards Von Miller, and all the sources are going to have Von Miller rated higher as a player. And I think they need Von Miller to play at a high level. I just think that it's kind of like the torch is being passed off, and whether it's Simmons or otherwise, we saw that last year. Other guys filled that role, and so. I like Simmons, and they franchised him and then signed him to a long-term deal, if I recall correctly, because
Yeah.
they like the guy. He's that good. So okay, Houston Texans, hit me up, man.
Oh, you want to talk about a team devoid of talent?
I can't believe you just said that. I literally wrote, "This is a team devoid of talent," James. You stole the words right off my page.
Yeah, I struggled mightily finding somebody that could even be an MVP on this team.
I mean, it's got to be Watson or nobody.
Not
It,
even Watson. It's going to be Laramie Tunsil. Like that's the only talent on this team.
I like what you're saying because we can't count on Watson being on the team. I mean,
Yeah,
and Laramie Tunsil, he's rock solid at left tackle. And so
yeah,
if he can
exactly.
open up some lanes and keep Tyrod Taylor or whoever, Davis Mills clean in the pocket, well, then he's got a lot of value for that team.
Exactly. And that's the only way I could go on this. Like because you can't count on Watson. You don't know who's going to be playing quarterback. They have like 700 running backs there.
Yep.
They they've gotten rid of anybody that knows how to play football on the defensive side, basically. Where are you going to go?
I like what you did though with Tunsil because he is a proven commodity. He's solid. And yeah, I mean, they don't have anybody else that's just going to put the team on their back. It's just not going to happen in Houston unless Watson plays. And then we know he's the guy. But it's hard to count on that right now.
Yeah. Which I'm hearing a lot of rumors that Watson's going to be traded to Philly.
I mean, I know it's a tangent, but I would be fine with that because with all of this going down the way it did in Houston, it just seems like if he clears this mess, I think a change of scenery would be good.
hmm Exactly. And Philly with Philly, you have Jalen Hurts Watson that ran it not even near each other talent wise,
Hmm.
but similar style.
Yeah, yeah. So you're keeping consistency in the quarterback room.
Yeah, it's not like you're going from Carson Wentz to um what who was the backup before they drafted Hurts?
Oh, you're talking about Foles?
No, no, after Foles.
Oh,
What was his name?
oh, like Kafka? I don't remember, man. Uh,
It's not Vince. It wasn't Vince Young, but it was a similar style quarterback.
okay.
I forget
Uh,
his name.
yeah, don't worry about it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I know what you mean. A mismatch where things have to change significantly if your starter goes down. That's very
Mhm.
disruptive to the team. Well, keeping it on the offensive line route for the Indianapolis Colts, next up on the list, I went with Quentin Nelson. And this is another one of these teams, much like the Baltimore Ravens, where they have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. And I don't think you could go wrong going with linebacker Darius Leonard, defensive lineman DeForest Buckner. Maybe you could pop in another name in there somewhere if you want. But I ended up going with guard Quentin Nelson, who it looks like is going to be playing left tackle to start the season until they figure that out. And I went with him because he's, in my opinion, one of the best offensive linemen in the league. And I think that for them to see the success they need out of Wentz, they got to keep his ass protected. We saw what happened last year when Wentz was under pressure. He buckled in a major way. And everybody's talking about Wentz getting teamed up with Frank Reich again. And the only way that that really works is if they keep his ass clean. And I think that's going to be starting with Quentin Nelson. And so, he gets my MVP nod for 2021 season, my prediction, anyhow.
So I looked at Quentin Nelson, but I went to the defensive side of the ball
Okay.
on this and went with Darius Leonard. And
Nice,
I
nice.
I honestly could see Darius Leonard putting based on how he's progressing and how he's how he's playing as of late with his what you call it his new extension that he earned. I see him becoming the leader on the defense and possibly even being in the conversation for defensive player of the year.
That would be impressive, and I mean it's not unattainable. He's one of my favorite linebackers in the league right now, and yeah, I mean the guy, he gets it done every down, man. He's one of those guys that plays to the whistle, no questions asked. It always happens, and so I like that. I like that pick. He was
Mm-hmm.
he was my honorable mention. Okay, so moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, James, I went with the same kind of theme as I did for Indianapolis. It was not on purpose. It just, they're alphabetical and it just turned out that way. But I went with center Brandon Linder. And the reason that I did that is, and I think Jacksonville has a pretty good offensive line. I think looking at the sources, a lot of them are fairly consistent that Linder is their highest rated offensive lineman. I don't really care so much about that. I care about them drafting Trevor Lawrence number one overall, and they need to keep him protected to help his development. And I think that starts with Brandon Linder. It's not a flashy pick by any means, but it's an under the radar team MVP for now because if he does his job well and keeps a good clean pocket for Trevor Lawrence, they give him the ability, Trevor Lawrence, the ability to be their franchise long term MVP down the road. I just don't see Lawrence coming out lighting the world on fire day one. it could happen. I mean, anything could happen. I just think it's this year, protect him, and he'll get there in time.
I have nothing to add to that. That's you basically hit all my notes on Linder. You just like it's like not word for word, but you hit every single one of them.
Well, nice, nice. That feels good when we're fully aligned like that. But now I feel bad. I took all the words from you. So, Kansas City Chiefs, why don't you take that one, man?
You just gave me the most obvious one.
All right, I'll give you two in a row. Kansas City, and then you got the Raiders after that. So take your time. Let me know what you're thinking here.
Okay, Kansas City, it's obvious. It's Mahomes. I mean, Mahomes is in the conversation for MVP of the league, and in my opinion, to be even in the conversation for MVP of the league, you have to be the MVP of your team.
Yeah, I mean he's going to be in the MVP of the decade conversation. I mean it's just
Uh-huh.
he's a different kind of talent, and you know I mean I know there are people out there that would want to reach, and especially if you're going non-quarterback, they would want to make the case for tight end Travis Kelsey, defensive tackle Chris Jones, or even safety Tyrann Mathieu. But yeah, I mean, Mahomes is an otherworldly talent, and everybody knows that. So yeah, he's got to be the pick in my opinion as well.
Yeah, and especially what they've done to this offensive line and how they've just solidified this offensive line. If you look when last year when Mahomes was really under pressure and getting hit a lot, a la the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
he had a subpar game, but I can't give it to the offensive lineman because Mahomes is just that good.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's what they're saying is they know if they can give him some time, he's basically unbeatable. And he just didn't have time in the biggest game of the season, unfortunately. All right, moving on to the Raiders, man. Who you got there?
As poorly as the Raiders have drafted and managed this roster, there's one person on this team that is head and shoulders above the rest of the team,
Okay,
and that's Darren Waller.
nice, nice, nice,
He's
nice.
he's every year he's improving, he's getting better, and he like last year, what he had 1,200 yards last year. You have he catches pretty much everything that's thrown in his direction, and he's at least at the bare minimum right now, he's the third best tight end in the league, and he's the best player on that offense.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I did go with Derek Carr on this one, and I like Waller a lot. And I really didn't want to go with Carr. And it's weird that I picked Carr, but my way of sort of justifying it was that this is basically a do or die year for Gruden, and so much of that success is going to depend on Carr doing his part to get the job done. And if he does, then Waller's going to look great and it's awesome. If he doesn't, it doesn't matter. This team is effed, and they're basically looking at blowing things up potentially in the offseason. Uh, and I also really wanted to look at Josh Jacobs here, but with them bringing in Kenyon Drake, I thought, well, geez, I can't say Jacobs is going to be the MVP because he's going to be splitting carries now. And so
Mm-hmm.
this was one that I'll just tell you, I didn't like it any way around it, but I think you got it right, actually. I like the Darren Waller pick. That's nice.
Yeah, and my problem with Carr, I'm not even I'm still not even certain that Carr is going to be on this team by the start of the season.
Crazier
And
things have happened. Oh, because you think maybe the Aaron Rodgers thing is a possibility here?
um, I don't know. Something's just
Or
it's
Mariota?
I don't know what it is. Something just seems funny there.
Well, he's
And with
making the
Josh,
comments about Devontae Adams, right? So maybe
yeah,
they Maybe even if they don't get Rodgers, they still trade him to Green Bay.
Yeah, and then you look at Josh Jacobs, and the reason I discounted him was because he has too much of an injury history, and I can't trust him to be on the field.
Yeah, that's another good point. And I know you've talked about that with Josh Jacobs in the past. And it's, yeah, you got to be on the field to be a difference maker. And then really, I mean, you can even go beyond that. They gutted the offensive line this year. And
Hmm.
so it's going to be harder for these guys to find running lanes. And so yeah, it's the Ra the Raiders are such a mess, man. It's a bummer. I was wanting to see Gruden succeed, but I think this is going to be it for him after this year, to be honest.
Possibly.
Okay, moving on to the Los Angeles Chargers. I will go first here because I think you're going to go in a different direction than me. Uh, I'm going with safety Derwin James. And I think without a doubt, Justin Herbert or Joey Bosa would be the more popular picks. And rightfully so, rightfully so. They're both very, very good and mean a lot to this team. Um, I think that we already know to a certain degree what they offer, and so I wanted to kind of zig when everybody zags, and that's where I went with Derwin James because when he is healthy, this guy is a freaking beast in that secondary, and he could transform this defense. And I know that the health thing has been the big question, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and I'm going to predict that this is his year, that he stays healthy. He's got a new defensive genius kind of head coach. And, maybe it's wishful thinking on my part, but if he does stay healthy, I think he takes this defense and in turn, this team to a whole new level. And it's at a time where they got a freaking young, like rocket ship rising quarterback. So I don't know. I think the Chargers have a hell of a lot going on for them right now. Who do you like?
So I looked at Derwin James, and my issue was with him,
The health.
the injury, the health,
Yeah, yeah.
and I mean this defense. Yeah, I agree with you. This with Derwin James on the field, this defense is completely different. I looked at Joey Bosa, and what it came down to me was with how Herbert was playing last year. I, I see him just taking another step forward this year, and he's gonna this year. I believe he's going to be one of those players that's in the conversation for league MVP.
Do you think he could potentially be Mahomes level year two?
Yes,
Fuck. It's just intense to think that. But he had
it
such
is.
a phenomenal rookie year.
It is. It's intense. It's weird to think that, but I think he could he maybe not reach Mahomes level, but approach it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
with him approaching Mahomes level, this team's gonna win 12 games this year.
I mean, I had him as a dark horse Super Bowl team, man. I
So
like this team a lot.
yeah, so you get 12 wins this year. What was it? Last year they won what, like five?
I want to say five, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna look
Sure.
because I think it was five,
Okay.
and he's just gonna get that much better. And I'll be the first to admit it. I was way off on him. Ooh,
Everybody was, man.
they won seven last year.
Ah, well, good for them. No, everybody was off on him. When he came out of college, everybody was like, "Oh, the accuracy's not there." And
Mhm.
that's the big thing, man, is that the these quarterbacks that don't have the accuracy in college very rarely get better at it in the NFL because the game speed is so much faster and it's so much harder that a lot of times it goes the other way. It's hard to make that kind of progression. And oh, I mean, he just freaking blew everybody away, man.
Yeah, and I was like, my thing was more of the Oregon quarterback issue. Like you look at like
Yeah.
what Mariota and Harrington
Oh,
and
Harrington, Joey Blue Skies.
yeah, like you look at their history, and it's bad to say because that's more player than dealing with the college and who the player is. It's like what Texas. Wait, did Mahomes go to A&M or Tech?
Tech.
Okay, then I'll scratch that because I was thinking he went to A&M, which is where Manziel went, and
No, 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 no.
so that's where I was going with that.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's I didn't like the Oregon quarterback, and Herbert's changed my mind, and it made me realize it's more specific to the player than have to do with them being a a system quarterback.
Yeah, yeah. Nice. Well, that's good. Okay. Miami Dolphins. Who do you like there, James?
With the Miami Dolphins, I it's
Just
like
hit me, dude. Just hit me.
so there's a couple candidates. You got Will Fuller, that's a candidate. You have obviously have Tua, if he takes a step forward, that's a candidate. I went on the defensive side,
Hmm,
and
hmm.
it's Xavier Howard.
Tell me more.
I mean, last year he had 10
10
interceptions last
picks.
year.
10 picks.
The most of anybody in the league in like 14 years or 15 years or whatever
10,
it was.
10 is like insanely
Yeah.
high, man. Yeah.
And if he even approaches the level that he played last year, I mean he's clearly the leader on this defense.
Hmm.
He his play elevates the defense to the point which keeps them in the games and allows possibly Tua to have his setbacks that he had last year. And that's why I'm going with Xavier Howard.
Nice, nice. And so I was so close to doing the same thing, and I ended up changing at the end because there was a couple articles earlier today that he may be on the trade block, James. Apparently, his contract situation is really breaking down with the team, and
I, I
they're
still
starting to listen to offers to see if they can make a move. And I don't know if maybe this is warranted. Maybe it was just some random guys that got their rumor mill stuff out there, and I ended up catching it. But so that shook me off of Xavier Howard, and then I talked myself out of it anyhow. I was like, man, what are the odds that he gets anywhere near those amount of picks again? Because he's going to be all over the radar now this year, and I don't know. But either way, he had a great year. I don't want to take anything away from him. You mentioned Tua. I'm totally not sold on him just yet, and I don't know why, man. I still, and I keep saying it, I need to see it from Tua before I can believe it. And I just haven't seen enough to believe it. And so the guy that I picked was linebacker Benardrick McKinney. He was traded to the Dolphins from the Texans back in March. And to me, that's a sign that Brian Flores wants this guy to be the man on his defense. And, I've heard a lot about Flores loves the linebackers and, believes that that should be a strength on the defense. And, I could see McKinney being very productive, being a very vocal leader, and really kind of being the glue for that unit. Um, but yeah, I still like your pick though with Xavier Howard, hoping that he stays in Miami.
Yeah, I miss that about the trade rumors.
And hey, I think it's just rumors at this point. Anything can happen. He could stay, he could go. Nobody knows.
Well, I think they're citing his Instagram or Twitter posts as saying he's probably gone because apparently he posted they won't realize how big a part you play until you're not there to play it no more.
Uh, Yeah. Okay. It's
Well,
falling apart.
I
It's
miss
falling
I
apart.
miss I miss miss that this week, and I possibly would have gone somewhere else with it, but
No, hey, it's all right, man. There was no money on the line here.
yeah.
It's not a life or death decision, and there's plenty of there to make the case if the guy stays on the team. And like I was just about to say, money talks. They could still find a way to rework his deal and make him happy.
Mhm.
Like right now it could be a little bit of chicken where they're like, no, we want you to honor your contract. And, in the back of their minds, they could be thinking, yeah, a few weeks from now, we're going to throw him some more money and make it happen. Who knows? Those things tend to happen in the NFL.
True, true.
All right. New England Patriots, man. Who do you like there? I don't want to stress you out. You give me that
No, I
sigh, and I'm like, oh, no.
well no, because you said New England, and it reminded me about how Cam was out there saying that he just
Oh,
is going to come out and prove it this year, and this and that, and whatever other
yeah.
bullshit he was spewing. I was like, I can't believe I forgot about that in the news section, and then
Because it's
as I,
not newsworthy. It's not
yeah,
newsworthy.
yeah. So, anyways, this person might not be the best player on New England, but he clearly is the leader of the defense. He's
Okay.
their play caller. He's been their play caller for a while. Defense kind of looked shaky last year when he opted out,
I think I know where you're going.
and that would be Dante Hightower.
I like that pick.
And I just, I just think he's that player that solidifies the defense. You look at like you have what Matt Judon and
They brought back Kyle Van Noy. I mean, they totally transformed that defense. And
yeah,
so,
what's the guy I'm forgetting his name?
uh,
Gilmore.
yeah, they got Stephon Gilmore. They still got one of the McCourties, and they drafted that defensive tackle out of Alabama, right? I mean, this defense could be formidable this year. Should be formidable this year. Um, I like that case for Hightower. I think all that adds up to him being very valuable for that unit, getting all those people to do their jobs the right way. I went offense on this one, and I went with running back Damian Harris. And basically, I was looking at it as, yeah, they just loaded up on defense. And yeah, they just drafted a rookie quarterback and they got Cam and who knows what's going to happen there. And I just thought back to the potential I saw in Damian Harris. And I know that Belichick typically likes to go running back by committee, but I think this is going to be Harris's year to get more of a workhorse kind of role. And there have been moments where it looked like it was going that way anyhow. But in my mind, at least, and maybe this is just my warped opinion, and I could never emulate Belichick, but I think that if you feature him in this offense, the team as a whole can play better complementary football and control the clock, which can also help take a lot of pressure off of the quarterback, which I think is important whether it's Cam Newton or Mac Jones, because Cam hasn't exactly shown that he's got anything left in the tank, really. And Mac Jones is a rookie, like you don't want to put all the weight on his shoulders. And so I went Damian Harris here, and I thought it was going to be one of those under the radar kind of unpopular picks. But shit, man, after you said Donta Hightower, I really like that pick. But I got to stick with mine, obviously. It's written. Let it be, so it shall be written, so it shall be done. However that goes. Okay, moving right along. New York Jets. Who do you like there, James?
So I'm going to start off with my honorable mention. If this player truly is back or truly is healthy coming into the season, he could have a phenomenal year.
Okay.
and that's C.J. Mosley. That's my honorable mention.
Yes. Yep, I like that. Yeah.
But for the Jets, what it boiled down to is if they're going to have any success this year, they have to keep Zach Wilson, Zach Williams, Zach Wilson.
Yeah, Zach Wilson. Yep.
Yeah, Zach Wilson. I don't know why I started thinking his last name was Williams, but anyways, they're going to have to keep him upright. They're going to have to keep him healthy. And how do you keep your quarterback upright? How do you keep your quarterback healthy? Well, there's one of two ways. You either find a phenomenal running back that people are scared shitless to let pass the line of scrimmage. Do they have that? Tevin Coleman doesn't scare you. Ty Johnson, Michael Carter, none of these players scare you. Or you have
Mount Becton.
a great offensive line.
Yes.
And the cornerstone of a great offensive line is a great left tackle.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I went with Mekhi Becton as the team's MVP. He'll keep Wilson. He'll help keep Wilson upright and allow him to at least try to prove that he deserved as high a pick as he was.
I like that. It's similar to what we were talking about with Jacksonville, and I do like that they drafted Elijah Vera Tucker too. I think that he's going to come in and help solidify that offensive line. But yeah, it all starts with Mount Becton, man. I mean, that he's just a beast. He's huge, man. So I ended up going defensive line, and I went Quinnen Williams on this one. And when I was looking at the roster and looking at different guys, trying to make my case, trying to find a narrative, I started to think about their new head coach, Robert Saleh, and, looking at his time with the 49ers, he showed an ability and an affinity for getting a lot of production out of the defensive line. And the 49ers had a lot of talent on that defensive line. And I think he got every ounce out of those guys. And so I started looking at Quinnen Williams, and his name just kept sticking out to me when I was thinking about that. And I kind of thought, whether it's unsung or not, he has a chance with Saleh as the head coach to make a major impact on this team this year. And it could be one of these things where Saleh's just squeezing a little bit more out of this guy, and he really becomes a force on that defensive line. And so that's what I was thinking with the Jets.
Makes sense.
Okay. 2 left. Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll go first here. I've been letting you go first for the last few. And, it's all about taking turns. Sharing is caring, whatever they tell the kids. This one, I couldn't really go anywhere other than TJ Watt. It's, one of these things where Pittsburgh is a defensive team. Roethlisberger is in decline. We saw the wheels fall off last year at the end of the year. And I think with it being all about defense for this team, TJ Watt is the main man on that defense. And he's going to keep getting to the quarterback. He's going to keep being disruptive. And so I really had a hard time looking anywhere other than him. There was a brief moment where I was feeling a little frisky, and I wanted to go with Chase Claypool just for shits and giggles. But I thought, nope, it's got to be TJ Watt.
I consider TJ Watt. I seriously considered him. But last year, when Dupree went down, this defense wasn't the same. And I don't think Watt is as good as people claim he is.
See, I was saying that shit a year ago, and then a whole year of watching him play, I was like, no, I think he's fucking great. I messed. Maybe I drank too much Kool-Aid. I don't know, James. But yeah, keep talking. Tell me what's up.
So, Pittsburgh is the worst team in this division. For Pittsburgh to have any success this year, yes, the defense has to be good. But Roethlisberger, and with this terrible offensive line they have put together, yeah. Roethlisberger has to find a way to stay upright. And we'll go back to what I said about the Jets. Either offensive line or running back. Keep your quarterback upright.
I
So
see
for
where you're
Pittsburgh
going.
to have any success this year, Najee Harris has to have a phenomenal year.
Yeah, like 25, 30 carries a game.
Yeah. And I know it's a little strange picking a rookie to be the team MVP, but I think it's Najee Harris. Like I think that's the only way
I don't
Pittsburgh
think
can
you're
have
crazy
any
with this pick.
success.
I don't think you're crazy with this pick. The only reason I didn't really entertain it was because I'm nervous about the offensive line.
Hmm.
But I think there's the opportunity is there and the potential is there. And so if they can get him some lanes to work with, I would love it if they did that because it would mean they could basically keep Roethlisberger, healthy and also keep him, still somewhat of an arm going into the playoffs. I think that was part of the problem last year is that he had to throw the ball so many fucking times that by the time they got to the playoffs, I mean, it was done, dude. I mean, the guy's old in quarterback years. It's, you can't throw the ball that many times, but if they could keep him fresh by running the ball more, that bodes well for them actually being able to make a playoff run. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. So okay, last but not least, Tennessee Titans. Who you got there, James? I mean, I gotta
I'm
ask, but to me
I-
it's kind
I'm
of obvious, but I gotta ask.
I- I'm gonna let you go
Okay.
first.
All right. Yeah. Just in case you're zigging when I'm zagging, I went with the obvious pick here, which is Derrick Henry, and I like the Julio Jones pickup, no doubt. But to me, it doesn't change the fact that this team runs through Derrick Henry, literally. The dude's a beast, and I think that their passing game benefits from him being a beast. And I'm not taking anything away from Tannehill because I thought Tannehill was a good quarterback in Miami, and I think that he is a better quarterback now with age and some development. And I think it works well for him that he's on a team where the running game is the focus because when he passes, it definitely opens things up for him. And Julio gives him that extra weapon. But I think, Derrick Henry, I don't know, man. I love the throwback, old school, just freaking grinder, pounding it up the middle. And I mean, he pounds it up the middle, he stiff arms throws people, but if he gets an inch of space, he actually runs away from people too, which is crazy. And so I'm going Derrick Henry, man. I got a major man crush on that guy.
You see, I really considered Derrick Henry, but it felt way too obvious for me.
Yeah,
And I'm trying to look up their ranking on something because I want to verify something because my note doesn't seem correct.
okay.
Um, so my note seems way off on this. So I just have to verify because I have them as like the 28th, ranked like 28th defensively.
I wanted to say that they were very underwhelming, that I thought they were going to be a lot better, but 28 seems really, really low.
Yeah, 28th. Only four teams allowed more yards defensively than them.
Jeez, that's pretty wild, man.
Um, that's total defense. Passing defense, they were a little bit better. No, they were a little bit worse. So, considering all of that, I think the player that ends up being team MVP here is Bud Dupree.
Yeah, hey, you were just talking about him with Pittsburgh. Okay.
Exactly. And he's seen in Pittsburgh, he's a game changer on defense. He's that player that makes everybody else around him better. And because Derrick Henry felt like way too obvious of a pick, and like you could even possibly go to Tannehill because when Henry's on and if
Yep.
Henry's pounding the ball down, you're gonna have they're gonna be more concerned about the rush and then Tannehill's gonna be able to throw the ball, or even Tannehill can freaking run the ball. Who knew? Um,
Well, he was
but
a college wide receiver before he converted to quarterback. So yeah, he's got
no,
some
I know.
speed.
And and then I thought maybe Simmons, but I mean I think it's Dupree. I think he's just that piece that this defense needed to not be 28th in yards per game. Uh, let's take a look at rushing yards per game real quick.
Yeah, I mean, he is their prized free agent pickup. And so, yeah, he should have a big role right off the bat, for sure.
I mean, rushing yards per game they were about middle of the pack, but sacks wise, do you know they only had 19 sacks all of last year?
Man, that's so low. It is so low.
I mean, hell, the Lions had 24.
Yeah, the lowly Lions. And they had Clowney last year in Tennessee too, didn't they? I mean,
Yeah, they
not
did.
that that's saying anything, but everybody loves Clowney, not me.
Yeah, I just think I think, and they still won what were they 11-5 last year?
They're still a good team. They're still definitely a good team, but they're I talked about this last year going into the season that they way overplayed the talent on their roster. And that,
Hmm.
like, when you look at all their player ratings and you add it all up, they're a lot lower than you would think across the board. And that was one of my cases for why I thought Vrabel was such an amazing coach because he was he was making it work, man, and he still is making it work. And if they add a few more pieces like Bud Dupree, and maybe they hit on some of their draft picks, that could definitely change things for this team. Where now all of a sudden the coaching's aligning with the talent, and it just starts to perpetuate. And yeah, I like Vrabel. I like where this team's going, but they do need a few more pieces, I think.
Yeah, I think I mean hell they were towards the bottom of the league for points against on defensively. I mean this defense is just going to take a huge step forward, which is going to make the team that much better.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this, man, and this is just me, spitballing on the side here, but for next week, I'm almost kind of wondering if we should just do a little bit of back and forth where we rotate. Somebody picks offensive MVP, somebody picks defensive MVP.
Hmm.
It just seems like, for a lot of these, you could make a case for a guy on each side of the ball. Or I don't know. I don't know. Let's just stick with what we're doing because I think the thing is we covered both sides of the ball. Whether you had one and I had the other, we had a lot of honorable mentions, and I think we got there anyhow. I just I don't want to leave some important guys off the list, but I think we're going to cover them. I think it's okay.
Yeah, like we, I think we hit it like kind of like back and forth. Like you were looking offensively, I was looking defensively, or vice versa for most of them. I
Yeah.
mean, hell for Pittsburgh, I almost picked the goddamn punter.
Well, you know what, James? That actually leads in really well to the question of the week. Could you fathom a special teams player being the MVP for a team? And before you answer, I'll tell you my thought. And I like to give the answer first, so it gives you time to think, obviously. But two names came to mind for me that if you were gonna name a special teams guy as your team MVP, I thought back to Adam Vinatieri and just how fucking clutch he was for so long. And I mean, he was clutch in the biggest moments of the biggest games in a position where uh, these guys have to be so mentally strong or they just crack. And we've seen so many of them crack. And so he stuck out to me, and I was like, maybe. And then the other guy that stuck out to me was Devin Hester, kick returner for the Chicago Bears. Oh, I'm stealing what you were thinking.
No, no, no. So those were the two people that popped in my head when you said, could
Yeah.
you see a special teams player be team MVP? And those are the two people that instantly popped in my head. And I was like, there's no way he's going to say Devin Hester after you said Vinatieri. I was like, there's no way he's going to say Devin Hester. I almost interrupted you and said Devin Hester.
All right. So with those two guys in mind, could you actually see one of them being a team MVP or a player like that in today's day and age? Or do you think it's got to be somebody on offense or somebody on defense?
I think with the right team, that could be possible.
Okay. Because it
Like,
just seems like special teams aren't on the field enough. I think a lot of people would make that argument, like, oh
yeah,
yeah, you got to have a good kicker, but some games they might not kick a lot, or it might be all extra points, or if you're a kick returner, it's kind of like, well, yeah, but today they'll just kick it out of the back of the end zone, like does it really matter as much as it used to? And so I think it's challenging, but it's funny that we both, right off the bat gravitated to those two guys.
yeah. I could see, and I agree with you. Nowadays, it's hard to see a place kicker or a returner as the team MVP.
Yeah. I mean, a
But
punter would be sweet.
yeah, that's the position that gets no love. So much of the game, so much of how good your defense is, in a lot of ways, comes down to the punter and where because there's a big difference for them punting the ball and having it go out of bounds at the 1 instead of out at the 20 or shanking it and it goes out at the 40. Like
Oh, yeah.
field position plays such a big role in today's game
Yeah.
and the success of your defense that I could see for the right team, like a team that's so devoid of talent that just kills it on field position with punting and happens to because if you pin them inside the 10 and they're kicking off, you're starting on the plus side of the field and you need what, like 10 15 yards before you can kick a field goal.
Well,
And
yeah. And to continue on with that, I want to say this was a Mike Shanahan thing back in the day, is that he talked about how important punters are. And I mean, I don't remember the exact article, but it was something like, the difference between the best punter in the league and the worst punter in the league was like X amount of yards per punt. Like if you just looked at averages. And he was trying to simplify it because, like you're saying, it's more than that. It's can you pin them with that coffin corner punt? Or, can you make sure that you don't shank it off your foot and it only goes 10 yards and this and that in big moments of the game? But he was just talking very generically that, hey, if you get an average of an extra 4 yards a punt off of your punter and you extrapolate that every game throughout the season, it was like something ridiculous, like an additional like 700 or 800 yards or something that the opposing offense has to make up. And his whole thing was just like every yard matters in the NFL, like make them go as far as they got to possibly go. And, put some money in your punter to make sure you're doing that because it will, over the course of a season, make a difference.
exactly, and that's why I could, in theory, for the right team, see a punter someday get team MVP because the teams give out the team MVP every year. Wasn't that like part of the reason why Antonio Brown wanted out of Pittsburgh because they gave it to
Juju.
Juju that year, like, and they announced it before week 16 or week
Yeah,
17 games or
yeah.
16 games. Like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm out of here.
It was that was pretty foolish on the team's part, in my opinion. But that's a whole separate can of worms. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, hey, that's good. I'm I got to be honest. When I thought of this question of the week, it was purely based on me going through it, and I'm like, nowhere in here am I even thinking of a special teams guy. And I was like, it just seems like somewhere down the line, you got to ask that question.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hey, so anybody who's still watching, just like we did Name That Stadium, we'd like to get your comments on this. What do you think about our question of the week? Could you fathom a special teams player being named team MVP? Let us know. Hit us up with some comments. And so, other than that, James, getting into our wrap up part of the show here, any closing thoughts, man?
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay. Well, normally I'd say, hey, we got to come up with a topic for next week, but we're going to be doing the same thing just on the NFC side. So I had fun with this segment. It was good. And it was, yeah, I think it flowed well. These are fun ones to talk about because, we're not just like regurgitating stats. Stats they can help make the case, but there's so much more to it than that. You really got to watch these games and you've got to be listening to who's contributing how, and all that stuff ends up being a factor. Oh, did I lose you? I think I lost you. It's all good. We're wrapping it up anyhow. So, for anybody who's still watching, we hope you liked the show. If you did, hit us up with that thumbs up. And if you really liked it, hit the subscribe button. But at the end of the day, we really want to hear your opinion on this. So, shoot us some comments. Let us know how we're doing. And that's a wrap for tonight. So, thank you. Catch you later.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.